Welcome to EDU 3339, Chapter 19 on measurement. So there are certain important things to keep in mind when teaching measurement. Number one, we want our students to understand what measurement is and how to do it. So they need to understand what is being measured, like is it length, is it weight, is it capacity, and understand what units to use and what tools work with those units. The second thing is measurement sense, and that's just becoming familiar with the standard units and to estimate with them so that they know generally how big a yard is, or that a mile is much longer than a yard, those simple things. Third and last is developing the measurement formulas. Don't start with the formulas, because if you do, you will confuse the students later on because they won't have that underlying concept that they need with measurement. So here's estimation. I have a picture here of capacity estimation. So about in length, in weight, and in capacity, how heavy something is or how long something is. You can also find these in the metric system, and that's very helpful for students who really are unfamiliar with the metric system. Then you have your formulas, and formulas are important to teach students after they understand the concept of measurement. Then they can memorize the formulas and be able to use them. So let's start looking at the various types of measurement that we have. First of all is length, and on the left you see customary and on the right you see metric. Both of these need to be taught, and the children need to be able to convert within the system, not convert between the two systems necessarily, but convert within the system of measuring length. So in customary, it's foot, yard, and mile, and then in metric, it is your metric system that's just common, and then with the meter is your unit. So next, if we go to weight, customary on the left, metric on the right. You go from ounces to pounds to tons. So you're looking at, in the metrics, you're using grams, so it's the same thing, being able to convert within the unit. Now we're going to look at measuring angles. Students also, within measurement, need to learn how to measure angles, use a protractor, become familiar with what a 90-degree angle looks like, and if something is smaller than 90 degrees, it's called acute. If it's larger than 90 degrees, it's called obtuse, and then what a straight angle is. So they need to become very familiar with how to use a protractor in measuring angles. Area and perimeter is something else. We're talking about two-dimensional shapes here. Learning to determine area and perimeter. These are easily confused by students in the beginning, so it's important that we use some real-world problems with them so that they can see that a perimeter is like putting a fence around something, an area is like laying carpet or tile within a house. Just some simple real-world situations will help them to figure out the difference between perimeter and area. And then we do want to teach them the formulas so that eventually they can do any typical shape of area and perimeter. Next, we move on to the three-dimensional shapes, which are our capacity, how we measure capacity. On the left, you find the customary. We start with cups, pints, quarts, gallons. And there are some different ways to measure them in this particular picture. And then on the right, we're still with our metric units, only this time it's liter. Showing students common things that we use, like water bottles are half of a liter. If they can see that, or 2 liter of a Coca-Cola bottle or something, so they can get the idea of what the capacity is in the metric system, since they're kind of unfamiliar with that. We also talk about volume. Now, instead of just showing the students the formula with volume, be sure to show them that volume is just finding the, of a cube here, it's just finding the area, that would mean one of the sides, and then multiplying it times the height. So we have length times width times height. So this picture I thought was very nice, that showed us the area in the top in black, and as we add those cubes, the yellow ones down in, we can see that multiplying by the height would then give us the capacity, the inside of that cube. So here are areas of other shapes that you will need to know and be able to teach. On the left we have the area of the trapezoid, and I did put the formula there for you so that you could be reminded. It is half times height, and then of adding base 1 and base 2. So you add base 1 and base 2 first, and then you are going to add them together. So 10, you have your 14, half times 10 is 5, and then 5 plus 14, or 5 times 14 is 70 centimeters squared. And then you have your area of the triangle, which is half times base times height. And then you have area of parallelogram at the bottom. This one's interesting because typically we teach length times width for a rectangle, but in this case, I think you might want to use the base times height because we don't use the side or the width. We use the height and the base. Next we have the circumference of a circle, which is pi times diameter. So we do need to familiarize our students with what pi is, and then the area of a circle, which is pi times r squared, radius squared. The volume of the cylinder and the cone relate to the circle. So if we look at the volume, it's the same thing as the cube with the volume. If we get the area of the top and then just multiply it times the height, that's the volume of a cylinder. So pi r squared, or pi times radius squared times the height, is the volume of a cylinder. And the volume of the cone is that same formula, only basically divided by 3. So it's 1/3 of that. And that's what a cone would be. Another part of measurement is that of telling time. In the younger grades, we have to teach them how to tell time. We usually start with the o'clock and the 30 or the half past. Then we add the quarters in, or 15 after, or 45, and then we add the 5-minute blocks. A lot of students do not know how to read an analog clock, which is the kind with the hands on it, because they're so used to digital. So it takes some time to really allow students to learn how to tell time using a regular clock. Then in the upper grades, the time portion of measurement is that of elapsed time. And that's the amount of time that passes between one time or another. So you could be counting forward, like from a time a student left their house at 8:15 till the time they got to whatever event they were going to, 9:35. Or you could say they arrived at 9:35. It took them an hour and 20 minutes to travel. What time did they leave their house? So you can also work backwards on those elapsed time problems. So there are several videos that I've included for you on measurement. We have How Many Peas Fill the Classroom, which is a volume-centered activity. I thought this was really good. How to do the area and perimeter of irregular shapes. I thought you might need reminded on that. The surface area of triangular prism, the surface area of a box there, and then that of elapsed time in a 4th grade classroom. So make sure you watch these this week, get some ideas and some good ways that you can not only learn the content but learn to teach it.